Riot Games was established in 2006 with the mission to become the most player-focused company in the world. So in 2009, we published our first game, League of Legends, which I see we have a lot of League players here on this call today. It became really an instant hit, but ever since then, we've really expanded our portfolio into so many other games like Teamfight Tactics. We've even entered the entertainment sphere with our Emmy Award-winning series, Arcane. And we're also, as I've mentioned before, we've created some incredible music, right? We've collaborated with artists like Lil Nas X, like Zed, like Imagine Dragons, like KDA's Pop Stars, which you can find on YouTube, right? And we have so many other projects behind the scenes, including those with games, music, esports, and Arcane Season 2, which is really exciting. New Jeans, yes, exactly, as well, that was recently announced. And then one of the last things that I'll say that makes Riot super special is its people. So how many of you were ever a part of any clubs or organizations at your school? So if you were ever a part of any clubs or organizations at your school, Riot has something very similar. These are called our employee resource groups. At Riot, we call them our Riot inclusion groups, or RIGs for short. These are 7 of our RIGs here at Riot. And Rioters really have the opportunity to join any of these RIGs, to connect with their peers, but also really to influence our products. So one of the special things about RIGs here at Riot is that they have had such a central role in being able to contribute to our product teams and to influence design choices for our games. So how many of you are a fan of Senna from League, or Neon from Valorant, or Gecko from Valorant? So Riot Noir and Filipinos at Riot, Riot Unidos as well. They've all played a significant role in the character development of our League champions and our Valorant agents, which is really unique and special. That said, I'm going to kick it off over to you, Seth, so that you can present on player dynamics.
All right, questions that need answers. What are player dynamics and who am I? Well, let's start with the easier one. Pretty much, I've wanted to be a game designer since I was 5. I spent my childhood making games because I couldn't always afford different video games or things like that. I ended up making a lot of my own board games. Pokemon cards were extremely expensive. Growing up, it was maybe I think $15 a pack. My mom was always like, I can get you 52 cards for 99 cents. So that environment encouraged me to make my own games a lot. And then when I started, finally, when my mom did, save up and was able to get me some Pokemon cards, I started making my own. And then some of my friends kind of preferred the cards that I made. And that's what really, made it click that, oh, I can do this. I can take what resources I have, pencil and cardboard or paper, and I can make something that could capture people's imagination for hours on end. I could come up with something that's fun that people would want to play again, or that they would say is just as fun or maybe even more unique than something that was already made. And that really inspired me to keep going and to move forward. So, shout out mom for, supporting me in the way she did, and not making something feel out of reach. If I didn't have the resources to do something at a certain time, then use what resources I had to earn and work towards that. And then, because of that, I was really, really trying to figure out where would I go to college. There's options. I'm from Houston. There's options nearby, and there's options also out of state. But I know I really wanted to do games, but it wasn't really clear at the time, what did you have to do to become a game designer? Did you need to do math? Did you have to be good at coding? Did you have to be good at drawing? I wasn't really great at any of those things that I felt like, I could get a scholarship off of. And then I got a letter from Savannah College of Art Design, and it seemed like it was part of the program to help make you great at things like that. That's a program where you start off with foundational arts, where there was film, there was music. I always loved to rap as a kid too, so I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could go to the school that has a variety of different things I was interested in, and they had a game design and development major. So I went there, graduated, and now, fast forward to today, I am like, 10 plus years, I think maybe like 13 now, time flies, in the industry. I've worked on hidden object games, free to play RPGs on mobile, AR location based games like augmented reality, like Pokemon Go or things like that. The one I worked on was Jurassic World Alive. Casino games. I've done, of course, character based tactical shooters, shout out Valorant. And, it's a lot of different distinct games, but the thing that connects all of those together is, positive play. No matter what type of game you're playing, you want to be able to play those games and feel like you belong in the community, feel like you're safe, and feel like you're protected and that you can have a good time. So, for us, like positive play is just healthy player to player interactions and gameplay experiences. And, game developers who are tasked with maintaining positive play, work in player dynamics. And, that's like basically what I do. Seth Smith, as I already said, and I'm player dynamics designer on Valorant. And it's my job to come up with features and systems to help facilitate positive play in our game community and experience. So, player dynamics isn't just the ban hammer or, sending interventions or penalties to players. What player dynamics really is creating, like I said, an environment where you can have fun and play together, build community, and grow and thrive in a gaming ecosystem. The official definition is the craft of helping people play well together in games and social systems. Social or social environment or social architect design, or our tagline is designing for multiple minds. It's a subdiscipline of design like game design or user experience. User experience being like, hey, this is the flow of menus, and this is where we organize information, and this is how I access content. And game design, of course, being the principles, mechanics, and systems that enable gameplay in a game. So for me, a day in my life is just brainstorming different types of player dynamics features, writing out those concepts in the design docs, and leading the player dynamics design vision for Valorant. And that could look like coming up with different, features or new systems and mechanics that I think would help players play well together or feel protected and safe from any sort of behavior that is not acceptable in the game. So if we like look at player dynamics as like this space, it's a really big space, but we can break it down generally into these two types of dynamics. You have team dynamics, which is like player participation. In the chat, if you guys can kind of guess what some of these things are, but player participation is like, okay, I'm actually contributing and playing with my teammates. If you're AFKing, is that participating? No, not so much. So like how you interact with your team is part of your team dynamics, gameplay integrity. Not just in Valorant, but in all games, gameplay integrity is, are you playing fair? Did you step out of bounds? Like, is this a red card or a yellow card? It's the integrity in which you interact with other players. And then player communication. That could be like, hey, let's huddle, talk about our plays. That could be pep talks for how you, talk to players no matter the outcome of their efforts. Are you saying nice shot even if they miss? Like, are you able to say like, hey, good try, nice try? You know what I mean? Like, are you able to encourage your teammates? Or if they miss, instead of saying like, hey, good effort, are you shaming them or blaming them? Things like that. How you communicate to your team is essential for not just like your mental health in playing that experience and whether you enjoy it, but it's also essential to win and succeed. You want to keep your team's morale up. So that's something that is when you see people have good chemistry in the locker room, they'll say, oh, that's like a healthy, team dynamic. Like they're rooting for each other, they're sticking up for each other, whether they win or lose, they're engaging in good sportsmanship. Those are all good examples of team dynamics. Now, community dynamics, that's like people in the stands often, your spectator interaction. Are people being, there's like cheering for your team, but then there can be, you can also start interfering with the game if you start hazing players, things like that. So, even in sports arenas, you have staff to maintain that sort of protection of the players and of the audience, the spectators too, because they should both be interacting in a healthy way. So being mindful of that spectator interaction. In our case, it could also be virtual, when people are watching games that are being streamed, or if they're just talking about players in the comments, being mindful of, are you facilitating healthy interactions between spectators and athletes? Facilitator involvement, that's me or anybody who works at Riot. How do we engage with our spectators and our athletes and our players? Are we setting a good example with our behavior? Are we making it clear what our behavior expectations are? And then non-participant communication. That could be how people just talk about the overall game or the community around the game. They may not be gamers, but they may have perceptions about gamers. They may not be into football, but they may have things to say about various football teams. How your sport or your game gets covered in the media or the perception people have about it still impacts the behavioral expectations within that community. And it's something you have to be mindful of when you're a facilitator, because you want to make sure you're reaching out to news outlets and you're talking to players and you're maintaining the perception of what you actually envision people to do in this space and not necessarily another party's interpretation. So making sure that you are communicating what your vision is, across all of these parties, both people who are not participants, because they may one day become participants, people who are spectators, and people who are engaged at a professional level or who just played casually. You, as a facilitator, want to make sure you set behavioral standards and expectations for all of these groups and hold them accountable to make sure they address those athletes in a healthy way. So, like I said, player dynamics is a pretty wide space. We talked about gameplay integrity, communication, safety, and social bonds. There's much more than that. But as seen in traditional sports, people who are handling gameplay integrity would, of course, be like a ref. Communication, that's, of course, the team talking. Anybody that's responsible for the physical or mental health, that's under safety. And social bonds, this is a picture of runners. As a part of a run club, and the person at the lead typically sets the pace. The person at the back is the sweeper to make sure no one gets left behind. And then everybody else kind of runs at their own pace in between. But that right there is inherently a social bond within a running group. And when you play games, you also have those sort of social bonds. If you do Friday Night Magic, or if you go over to your grandma's house, and you play bones or, whatever, spades, there's like normally maybe a person who takes on certain roles in that ecosystem, and maybe they're the person who's going to teach rules to the next generation. Maybe they're the person who's keeping score over a series of time. Maybe they're a person who's just there to win and compete. There's different roles or goals or tasks to fill whenever you're creating a space where people come to your house or to a venue or to a space to play games. And that's how you start to build community around gaming. Within Valorant, of course, we have systems that detect behavior, so we can maintain gameplay integrity. And we also encourage players to report behavior when they see something disruptive. That's very helpful to us. Communication, we have voice chat, we have chat, we have pings. And, for safety, we make sure we have interventions that we can issue to encourage players to engage in a more respectful way. And of course, with social bonds, you could join and play with people at parties. You could add them to your friends list. You could, form a premier team and play with people. That's all different ways to socialize in our game. Anything that has player to player interaction involves player dynamics. It's extremely, extremely wide space. And, for me, is like, where does this fit into game development? Well, like, first, like, let's talk about like game development as a whole. When like creating a game, the analogy I've always used is like if you were building a house, what I do as a designer, I create the blueprints. I basically say, hey, here's the layout of the space. Here's what I want to happen in this room. Here's the living room. Here's what I want to happen in this room. Here's the rec room. Here's the kitchen. Here are the things I want to happen. Here are the hallways and how to navigate there. And here are the features within this. There's AC. There's going to be, these utilities, etc. The team that actually builds that, constructs that for us to actually navigate through it, that's the coders, it's the programmers, and that's like the construction team in the real life analogy. And then once that space is built, of course, even in the blueprints, you have a vision for how it could look and what it looks like. But the team that's responsible for actually bringing that to life, that's the artists, that's the interior designers. So, that's pretty much like how I look at making games. Like as a designer, I'm creating the blueprints. Our awesome programmers are constructing the actual virtual space for us to move around in. And then our visual designers, our sound designers, they're creating the aesthetic and the atmosphere of what it's like to navigate that space. So together, we're able to make something that feels like, a space worth navigating in and contributing in and making friends and playing in. So what's the blueprint for positive play? For me, you want to set the stage for player-to-player interaction. I don't know how many people are fans of Smash Brothers out here, like, real big fan of Smash Brothers. The reason why I picked this for setting the stage for player-to-player interaction is like, this is the same game. But if I were to say, hey, Final Destination, no items, 1v1 versus free for all at like, any moving level and items, those are very, very different types of experiences, right? And those are very, very different types of players. Players who just want to play competitive, like Evo, esports sort of aspect, they tend to want to do 1v1 duels with no items because items create that sense of probability, which means that there's still skill in using items, but there's a lot of times that you could win due to this person just happening was closer for this item to appear versus the other. For something a bit more deterministic and based more on just did I cause this effect? And there's a different type of skill in that. You're going to remove probability. So even though this is the same game, based off the rules, you could have two very different dynamics, right? So the first thing to do, like, when you're thinking about player dynamics is understand the audience that you have, what their needs are, and figure out if your design choices or, your settings, your rules are setting the stage to actually meet their needs. So this is a good example of how you can set the stage for player-to-player interaction. And then it's maintaining an open conversation with our players. Like, for us at Riot, like listening, we constantly love the thoughts, the feedback, the opinions, seeing when people are filled with joy with, our designs, and also very, 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 very like attentive and, concerned when we hear feedback that we can iterate on, and making sure that that dialogue of communications open so we can do our best to meet players' needs as soon as possible. But you really have to listen. And, empathy is understanding that maybe you may not be a player that likes this type of mode or that type of mode or this type of agent, but there's players that do. So you have to be able to take yourself out of the equation for a bit and really listen to what that player wants and make sure that as you're adding changes to the game, all the players that make up your community feel heard and that their needs are getting met. And then it's creating systems and mechanics to encourage the behaviors that you want to see and then de-incentivize the behaviors that you don't want to see. If you're playing well with your team, if you're getting assists, if you're supporting your team, let's give you, points for that. Let's call that out. Let's celebrate that. If you're doing things like, ability misuse and harming your players intentionally, or doing anything that's sabotaging the game, let's make sure that we have systems that detect that behavior and action against that, so we can encourage the behavior that we want to see more of. you know so we basically design player dynamics because ultimately, I believe, especially in this room, y'all will have this really, really brilliant game design idea. And once you have that brilliant, you probably already have it. You probably already, like Seth, like, I already got it written up. I started prototyping it, a couple months ago. You're probably already, on your way. But if you have that seed of idea, even if you haven't started, like one day you will start. And then once you do that, once you have that going, just like me when I was making Pokemon cards, with just cardboard and pencil. Once you have an idea and then you put it out to the world and somebody can play the prototype, doesn't have to look nice, but somebody can play it, it will attract other people. And that's kind of what this represents right here. And once your brilliant idea attracts other people, you'll get different types of people. You'll get some people who may be what we call role model players, and they're treating the rules and treating people in that space the exact way that you want to happen in that game to facilitate a healthy environment. You may have people that are kind of just having fun and they're just doing, like, whatever is fun to them. And, they're not really causing any harm, but they're not really going to call out disruptive behavior when they see it. And then you have people who, will be disruptive and will try to disrupt things and sabotage the state of the game and might make it unwelcoming for others. I think the thing is, once that starts to happen, if a person who's high performing or popular starts being that disruptive person, then that might influence others to be disruptive. And that might cause some of the role model players to leave, you know, and we don't want that because we want to make sure we take care of our players. So, what we think about is our players, how do we like understand what their different motivations are and who they are. This is using the Bartle types right now. This is and I'll explain that. But there's more. I just want to be clear. There's more than these four types of players. But there are players who are at the top left who are playing to compete. There are players at the top right who are playing to explore. There are players at the bottom left who are playing to socialize. And then there's players at the bottom right who are playing just for achievements. But there's a variety of different hybrids of different types of players. And you may start off as a player who just played this game so you can hang out with some friends. And then you may get really good at it and decide you want to be a competitor. Players have different needs. So this is, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's basically just saying that once your needs to survive are met, you start getting to the top, where you start figuring out, well, what do you really want out of life and your purpose? So like once you kind of have those sense of things, you start to understand what are the needs of the players in your ecosystem, whether they're role model players or disruptive players or players that are just having fun. Are most of your role model players competitors, or are they explorers or socializers? You want to intimately really get to understand that mindset, because that mindset leads to the behavior of the motivations behind the behavior of why players are functioning that way. So, when we go about like understanding our audience first, players first, we then start to think about, okay, based off what our audience likes and who they are, what are some pillars that we want to see established in our game? And maybe we may say something like safety, balanced play, or cooperation. Maybe those are our design pillars. And then from there, once we have those design pillars, we think about features that could be associated with those pillars. And so it's like safety is a pillar, and then we have this opportunity space called player moderation. Balanced play is a pillar, and then we have active participation as an opportunity space. Cooperation is a pillar, and then we have teamwork as an opportunity space. And then we could, once we explore that opportunity space, we may pull out a particular feature related to that. And then we'll have like, player reports as a feature. You could report a player if you see something disruptive to help make the experience more safe, to ensure that people are having like balanced teams and making sure it's 5v5. We can come up with the AFK detection to detect if like players are actively participating, so we can make sure that there's more games where there's full participants on both sides. For teamwork within our design, we could say, oh, what if different agents had different roles that had synergies between them and they could work together to cooperate to solve their goals? All of those things that you want to see in a game, in your brilliant design idea right now, take a step back and think about, hey, what are the dynamics that I want between players in my game? How do I want them to work together? What are the things that are most valuable for players to say when they leave my game? Like when you play basketball with your friends, when you go, when you race, when you play any sort of video game, can you think about, what I really like most about that game is I like the teamwork aspect of it. Or what I really like most about that game is you're always discovering something new. You can walk to the left and then you'll find some new things, and you can walk to the right and you'll find some new things. And each time I play it, it feels like a different game. You can think about those design pillars and then think about features within the opportunity space that you can discover and implement and design to help make sure that players feel that way when they go through your experience. And that's the same thing we do for player dynamics. Now, going back to what we said, we have role model players, we have disruptive players. Our role model players will align with the values that we, want. They're our ideal players in that space. They're the role models. They're like, hey, we want this game to be about balanced and fair play. We want you to cooperate, and we want players to feel safe. And here are players that, with their gameplay contributions, uphold principles of safety, cooperation, balanced play. Where your disruptive players will, of course, do the opposite. So what we need to do then is start having, those player dynamics features to help incentivize role model players to enter that space and thrive in that space, but then encourage our disruptive players to reform their behavior. And if not, then we have to start saying that, okay, this game experience is not for you if your goal is to enter this space and do disruptive behavior, because that's not aligned with our player dynamics pillars. So, once you start applying those principles to your game, then you will start encouraging players that are aligned with those values. And then you can softly discourage players who are misaligned with those values and want to be disruptive in that space, for engaging in that disruptive behavior. You can start to encourage them to, not be as disruptive. And, we have interventions to do that so that they can be more respectful to themselves and others while in their space. So, our overall goal is that, when you don't have player dynamics features in your game, again, what is the most frequent behavior will be determined by who's the most popular or who's the highest performing. What we want ultimately is to make very clear our rules, our principles, and behavior expectations so that we can get really great role model players. And any player who's disruptive can see those rules and see those expectations, and then reform into role model players and more well-behaved players. That's our overall goal. And for us, like player dynamics is a skill. Good behavior, healthy behavior is a skill. In the same way how you have to learn how to dribble in bounds, there are certain comments and there's certain statements that are also out of bounds for how you interact with others. So for us, this is all part of the skill. And in the same way we would reinforce, an out of bounds line or anything like that, we will do the same with how you treat yourself and others. So, that's like, our vision, our goal. Like, we believe that we have this opportunity to practice more empathy and just consciousness than any of our predecessors in the past. And that if we keep on developing player dynamics in various games, it continues to grow and becomes an industry standard. And we can create just a more safe, diverse, equitable, and inclusive gaming culture moving forward. Remember when I talked about non-participant, contributions, people who may not be in this space, people who may not be in games will often say games, can be very disruptive. People say a lot of mean things. There's a lot of hazing, and those things are true to some extent, but there's also groups of gamers who do treat each other very well, who do move very respectfully. And there's games and game designers that are working in this space to make sure that those games are healthy. So we want to change the narrative of games not being a safe space to be. And we want to do everything we can to make sure we set this generation as well as y'all up, the next generation up for success in valuing the behavioral principles that player dynamics is about. Because at the end of the day, everyone should be able to play a game, feel safe, have fun, and make friends. And when you look at the past, you can kind of see our progress, like, how, different organizations respond to diversity or to, different social political issues is very different based off of kind of when that organization was founded. Like I feel, with games and, your game will be founded in the future. Like as time grows and as we start to value mental health, as we start to value diversity and inclusion, you can make an esport or a gaming organization that is years, leaps forward than where we are at today in how players, how people in the media, how people who are fans, how they're treated within those sporting ecosystems. We can create something where people really feel like they belong, where there's really a lot of where we celebrate diversity and positivity and peace. And that's the overall vision of player dynamics.
Awesome. I think for myself, I always say like the gaming for me is like Bejeweled, Candy Crush. I'm not, your hardcore League of Legends, Valorant player, but understanding that, I think it really does as far as the player dynamics and how much effort goes into it in the back end. It brings not only realization, but appreciation to people like you, Seth. So thank you so much for, not only presenting to us and expanding our minds in this arena, but also for doing that job for us and making sure that people like myself that might not be those players, but that are in somewhat a consumer, and those that really are those players that are go hard and that they have their teams and their social groups, that we all are accepted, welcomed, and actually appreciated within the gaming space. So big shout out to you, Seth. I even dropped into the chat. I was like, let's not forget that he is a professional DJ. Okay. So like amongst all of the other things that Seth is, he also can get, stay down with the get down. It's so perfect. So we are going to hop into some questions, Seth. So during this time or during your presentation, we had people offer in questions via a Q&A form. So first question, is there a tool that you use to create a better player dynamic or better player dynamics and social space? And what goes in during that development phase?
Wow, that's a phenomenal question. Yeah, y'all are brilliant. I have full faith that y'all will continue to push player dynamics forward in the future. So for me as a designer, I really do. I started, as you remember, on pencil and cardboard. So I actually really do utilize just Google Docs and spreadsheets quite a bit. But we do create a lot of our own proprietary tools, or we will collaborate with other partners to develop tools that mostly allow us to detect behavior and intervene on them. So, we'll use a lot of systems. We also, of course, use, Unreal, but we'll use a lot of different engines and systems to create mostly behavior tracking tools as well as player messaging tools via interventions.
Nice, nice. And I think you are so right about that as far as the people that are listening into this specific session, because all of these questions, I'm like, y'all are hitting all of the marks. So the next question, as a senior designer, particularly involved in player dynamics, which involves UX, what does collaboration with UX researchers look like?
Yeah. Also, yeah, these are really great questions. I'm really impressed. So yeah, as you know, like just to explain, I think this audience probably already knows given that question, but user experience often deals with like user flows throughout, navigating a virtual environment or a game, an app, etc. When you log into Netflix and then you start scrolling and clicking, like where things are positioned, what inputs you do to cause that to scroll to navigate. That's all part of the user experience. And of course, that's very, very important to games, especially games that are competitive, what information you're getting on your screen, where your enemies are. All that stuff is part of UX. And we also want that for behavior too. So often it starts as, at the high top, like, again, we do the brute blitz. So we'll say, hey, what are our UX goals here for this player dynamics feature? We want players, and we'll do what we call user stories. A user story will sound like, as a player, when I type in chat to my team, only my team can see that chat. So like then we start figuring out, okay, do we need to have a different color for team chat, things like that. Or as a player, when I ping something, I'm able to see where I pinged, and so are my teammates. So we'll do a bunch of different user stories, and we'll figure out what our goals are there. And then UX, you always, I like to be very goal oriented. So other designers I'm collaborating with don't feel like they need to execute it the exact same way. They're the SMEs, subject matter experts. So they're going to understand UX differently than me and better than me. So I'll say my goals, and sometimes they'll be like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And other times they'll be like, well, we could do this because we did this in this other project. And it's like, oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. So when you're very goal oriented, it can help you and results oriented, and you let the details be owned by the SME. It can allow you to collaborate well and get things that you didn't even realize were possible.
Yeah, it's like if I know my role, I can play my role very effectively and let you play your role very effectively as well.
100%. Yep.
Next question. How did you get into this role slash field? And what sort of action items would you recommend for someone interested in starting a career in this area?
Yeah, you could always reach out to me or any I think player dynamics designer on LinkedIn. We constantly want people to enter this space. So, it's also a great question. For me, I did not know about player dynamics until I like really started a few years ago. I had worked on social games, as I said. I'd worked on a variety of different games. And I've always wanted to see people who, look like me. I just always wanted to see more Black representation in gaming. So I was always very, very passionate about, DEI and B's, like diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Like if you put D, E, and I in a Venn diagram, belonging's at the center. I've always interested in belonging in games. So working in social games and being interested in, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging that's the recipe for player dynamics. I didn't realize that until I got here, because at my job prior to this, I was working on, getting more Black and diverse games and movie concepts made. That was like I was pitching that. And then, I went to Riot, and in my interviews they're like, what are you passionate about? I was like, I'm really passionate about like diversity, equity, inclusion. Would love to be a part of any ERGs, or as we call them here, rigs, and gaming. And Valorant had like a more diverse roster, so I was like excited to be a part of that. And then in the interview they're like, yeah, so the role you'll be doing is to help create belongingness for players in game and also in real life events and our community as a whole. And I'm like, that is perfect. So I think like if you just follow your North Star, you'll ultimately end up where you want to go. My North Star has always been, I think, no matter who you are or how you identify, you should be able to wear a cape. Like every kid should be able to wear a cape. They should be able to see themselves as a hero. And I look forward to creating art and working on expressions that allow people to feel like they can be themselves and see themselves on the big screen and in games all over. So I think following that North Star led me to player dynamics. I think the good action items to consider are, do you are you involved in your community? Are you very, very much an advocate or for belonging in all areas of your life? Do you like to create experiences where people feel like they're safe and they belong? Were you the babysitter in your family by de facto? Were you the responsible one? Were you the one that's always making sure people are safe and taken care of? I think a lot of those things that you do, again, I started with just pencil and paper. I think a lot of the things that you do right there, if you're the person that's organizing groups, getting people together, helping resolve conflicts when people fight and making sure people are still talking to each other respectfully. I think those are a lot of the good seeds for a player dynamics designer. And I would just say, take a look at your favorite games or experiences and come up with features that could make people feel a bit more safe, feel like or encourage them to use teamwork more.
I'm actually going to go a little deeper in that question because I feel like that's such a great answer. Now, as far as like tools, is there anything or certifications or types of internships before you get to that point? But things that some of our collegiate students that are currently like, hey, I would love to be Seth in the future. What would you say maybe to your younger Seth self? You should be doing this right now to set yourself up for success by utilizing these tools or going out for these types of opportunities.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, working like at organizations like community for sure, like tapping in with your like local, for us, we have like, Blacks in Gaming, typing in with your local diverse game groups, is Women in Gaming, Black Girls Code. There's a lot of groups like that that are there for representation, for advocacy in the industry. So definitely get connected in groups like that. And I think as far as tools, like every game designer will always tell you this. Make games as soon as possible, make features as often as possible. So like I would say you can use whatever tool you really want. It's just like, do you have those projects? I would say, hey, pick up, Unreal and give yourself 2 weeks to work on a particular feature that's within the player dynamics space, if that's what you want to do, or any game space. Because again, player dynamics is making spaces safe for players and creating healthy player-to-player interactions. And whether you come from UX, whether you come from programming, whether you come from game design, those tools, those things that you use for game development will be helpful and will be useful when applied to solving the opportunity space of creating safety for players. But we have player dynamics features that you're already aware of, chats, pings, anytime you find ways to communicate with players, any system that allows you to report or detect behavior, any systems, even within gameplay design, when you're designing classes that have synergies and are designed to work together, you can literally in 2 weeks come up with games that work on group play. And you can play a lot of those board games like Werewolf that have different social dynamics. Among Us is a game that has like different social dynamics. Looking at MMO design, like those are a lot of games that are rife with different social mechanics and roles. and relationships. So I would say go to YouTube, like search player dynamics and read and watch a lot of the content related to that. Look up the Fair Play Alliance, tap into any sort of diverse, gaming organization that advocates for representation of different voices, and then hop onto Unreal, do a couple of YouTube classes, learn how to make a feature, and think about just making a feature that has a great, either cooperative dynamic or detecting dynamic or behavioral messaging dynamic.
Nice. YouTube University is free. So why not go ahead and utilize all of the resources that it gives us?
100%. And also feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I think it always makes sense to reach out to, designers in that space. At Riot, we call it player dynamics designers, but at other companies, they're, social behavior designers as well. It's that same field and space of facilitating positive play.
Yeah, I think, Seth, your role is like one of those roles where it's like the different career pathways within gaming and esports. And it's like, I would have never known that this was a role that I really could pursue. And I probably am doing a lot of it already if I am already game designing, but also a part of these social groups and clubs. So awesome. Next question. Are there any specific ways or recommendations to help moderate communities? This can be applicable to player dynamics as a whole or a smaller knit setting as well.
Yeah, you said, are there any tools or methods to moderate communities? Yeah, absolutely. So, I also have two other communities that I've started. Hello World Mixer, which is a diversity in tech and entertainment community. We meet about once a month, and we'll have a panel of industry professionals, and those professionals will have canned conversations about what it's like to navigate the industry from a diverse professional's point of view. I wanted to create a bridge between experienced professionals and inspiring professionals, so you can understand what it's really like. They don't always often tell you what it's like to be Black or diverse in the industry. Often, it's more like, oh, like I work on this game and I've done all these things. But, what is it like to not necessarily always see yourself in the games that you play, and how that can sometimes be a bit discouraging. And, the thing that motivates us is I can look at people who've come before me and see how much work they've done for me to get where I'm at. And that puts me in a position to want to do that for the next generation for y'all. So, there's that. And then there's Dream Bash, which is a cosplay dance, event. And I've just been to a lot of different cosplay events, and they, I do just don't feel like the music and the food and the experience is always catered to the Black, cosplayer. So I wanted to create a space that was, Afro beats, dance hall, soca, hip hop. I'm Trini, so definitely soca, and like that was representative of cosplayers that are Black and look like me, and are diverse. So in those communities, I think the thing is, again, going back to what we did with player dynamics, because virtual communities and real life communities, almost we're in an era where every community has a virtual component, has either a Discord or an IG page or, TikTok or a Reddit, and vice versa. Even if you're doing games, you're still meeting, at in real life competitions, So it's those values that we have. You have to say, what is this community about? For Hello World, I wanted people to really be authentic and really be vulnerable, and not always just say, hey, working here is great, but be able to be like, sometimes it's really hard, and it was hard for people who came before me, and it may be hard for people who come after me, but I'm going to do my best to make it as easy as possible. I wanted that sort of vulnerability, and I made sure the panelists were people who could speak to that in a way that was real and could connect with people And didn't make it seem like because they were experienced, they're very far away. And they don't understand what it's like to try to break in anymore. For Dream Bash, I just really wanted. I think there's a lot of great cosplayers and content creators on TikTok who, are Black and, look like, me. And I don't always feel like they get the algorithm love that they should. So I wanted to create a space where an aspiring influencer who loves anime and games could meet people who are, really, really, contributing to like that sort of Black nerd, Black anime gamer fan space and make those connections and be inspired to share their voice too. So, again, that's like creating my values are always like, no matter how experienced we are or where we're at in our field, like I want people who are coming up to feel like we're really close and we're like in reach. So with that value in mind, you start finding people in your life who align with that, and then you start building that with them, and you start sharing that vision that I just shared with y'all to people. And you can kind of see based off of who you're talking to, whose eyes light up. And that's kind of what I look for. I'm like, you resonate, you get it. All right, cool, let's build this. And then being honest and accountable when over time maybe it doesn't feel like that, anymore. And it's like, okay, hey, where did we go? Where did we pivot? We have to get back to that thing that made our eyes light up. That was really special. And then just like everything this is a good question because everything we just said at this deck, remember I said, set the stage, have the vision. Those are my pillars. Like I want an authentic bridge between the experience and the aspiring, generation of professionals, whether it's influencers or people who work as devs. And then the setting, like, okay, like make it very accessible for people to enter. Hello World has typically been free. Dream Bash, we had like free with RSVP till, for I think almost till midnight, it's like making sure people can get into the door. And then building with people who share those values. And then again, the next step was open communication with our constituents, our players, our people, our tribe, listening to them and seeing how they felt about the experience, and then changing and iterating that, and then coming up with systems to encourage or discourage the type of behaviors that we don't want to see. We wanted to make sure we had safety volunteers who were in, our t-shirts for Dream Bash, just make sure the vibes were good and everybody felt safe and comfortable. So, we kind of think about what our values are, and then what features can we implement to make sure that those values are realized.
You've created a space that you probably were longing for going through your career up until you had the means and the community to be able to create those spaces with you. And you probably also knew that it was like, I can't do this alone. I need a community to help me do this. And also this community is going to make my job, my life, me living this lifestyle a lot easier by having that feedback, that soundboard. So kudos to you, Seth, because both of those events and both of those organizations, I mean, we've had our own conversations of where it's just like major kudos. And the last one that just passed, once again, congratulations. I heard it was amazing. And then I also saw Victoria drop something in the chat that, you all were a part of, just when I say numerous different things of how it's just kind of, you probably thought it was going to be this one thing. And next thing you know, it's like, but wait a second, because I'm creating this space, because the community resonates within this space, they're pushing this forward even probably further than you thought that it would. And I'm probably just like speaking for you at this point. But
I appreciate it. No, that resonates, and I really appreciate it. It's like the love and support that I've gotten from the community, from community as a whole. Thanks for like supporting Dream Bass and sharing that flyer, and from Riot Games, from all of my friends in the D&I team, and Riot Noir. It's humbling. It makes me feel like I really belong, and I think that's kind of the seed that I want to plant in the ground for other people, just that I can reach out to feel that sense of community and that belonging that I feel from the people that I've met at community at Riot Games. And like I was saying, I feel very blessed and privileged to, work at Riot and to be able to like have met so many cool individuals who are about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, especially in this industry. It really needs it. But I want to make sure that even people who don't work at Riot or who don't work at organizations like Community have the opportunity to meet these awesome, wonderful people and to feel like they belong. So that's what led me to create those organizations. And yeah, I appreciate the great work that Community does in that effort as well. Like you already know, we had a time at the kickback, and I also shout out to Riot Noir and the D&I team at Riot Games as well for facilitating and supporting endeavors like this.
Yes, yes, 100%. I will ask one last question. Now, what would you say this would be focused on major-wise in college? And they had mentioned that this is something that they're interested in, but they're not sure if their current major is geared towards a position like this.
Got you. So for me, I think there's a lot of different things you can utilize to get to contribute to player dynamic space. I went the game design route or the design route. You can go the design route. Design, I feel, is really a lot of empathy, understanding someone else that's not you, and then creating a medium that allows another person to have their needs met. There's a lot of empathy in that, I feel. There's data science, because of course there's a lot of data to be able to track and understand the actions players are doing, the frequency that they're doing, and pull insights from that to understand the motivations behind behavior. There's product management, because of course, like we create products to help intervene and moderate behavior, as well as to facilitate teamwork. I think there's of course also behavioral research. If you have a degree in behavioral psychology or research, understanding again the different cohorts of players and their motivations and how things change from different region to region. So there's a lot of different ways that you can end up in a player dynamics space, whether it's from the research side, whether it's from the product side, whether it's from the engineering side, whether it's from the design side. I think those are all different routes, as well as quality assurance is another way, because of course we want to make sure that any feature we put out to players is of top-notch quality and delivers on the players' needs.
Nice. And I think also for others to know, like myself, I was a business major, but if I did the things that Seth had mentioned as far as being a part of certain clubs, being a part of certain community organizations, all of that reflects on your resume as well, right? So you don't have to, and I'm just speaking, so maybe I'm not correct in this, but I don't think that you would have to focus or have a major minor in this specifically if you show that you have the experience, you utilize the tools, you have a portfolio that showcases like how you have implemented some of these tactics and things. So and am I correct in that way as well, Seth? Like if you were hiring somebody, would you think like that?
Yeah, 100%. I think within game development, especially, it's very portfolio based. It's not necessarily like a degree is great and encouraged because like you can get a portfolio from your degree, but a degree without a portfolio, I don't think really helps as much in creative fields. So like the thing that we really emphasize the most is your portfolio. And whether you're a project manager or whether you're a community manager, those are all roles. Shout out to the player support team. Those are all like roles that are very, very impactful. So I think all those things help, but I think it's going to come down to again what your story is. It's not do I have a degree or not, or what's in my portfolio or not. It's what's the through line between all of the things you're doing and what's your North Star. Your North Star again is something that's like an evergreen goal. It's not a task. Like being a player dynamics designer isn't the North Star because you can achieve that. Wanting to make sure everybody wears a cape and can see themselves represented as a hero in media, entertainment, or in all experiences, that's something you can always work on. That's something you can always shoot for because different groups and different identities like change and grow over time. And you'll always need to have a story or an expression to represent that new community. So that's something you can always, grow and do. What would have made my mom's generation feel represented in media is not the same thing that make my generation feel represented. So that's a North Star. So it's, can you really chart how your degree, how your projects, how your contributions to community organizations, how your community service, can you chart how all those things align to your North Star? Like I said, I worked on a variety of different games, but when I say, hey, I worked on this, I worked on that, but all these games have communities that want to play in safe environments and feel like they belong. That connects all those things together. So I would really, really emphasize working on what your North Star is. You don't have to have the answer today. As you try different things out, it will reveal itself, as it happened to me.
I love that. I don't know if this is necessarily a North Star, but my phrase that I always say for myself and that I push for others is always make your passion equal your profit. To where it's like, no matter what it is that I'm doing something that I love to do, but I also am creating an impact in the spaces that I feel need to be impacted. So, like I said, I don't know if that's a North Star, but I'm about to claim it as my North Star because I'm like, that's exactly that. Like, no matter what role it is, no matter whether it's with community or with another organization, like, I will always push for people to make their passions their profit. Hence why I pushed for this as far as a Connect series. Hence why we do in the community of where it's just like, let's do this. And I want you to know that you can do whatever you want to do, but you can make money doing it, right? Like, so everybody, you don't have to be the broke entrepreneur route. Like, there are places that have the roles that you are already either doing something in or you're already making an impact in, or you want to get to that point of where you can make that genuine impact. So thank you so, so much, Seth. If you can stop sharing your screen,
Yep.
I'm gonna share mine.
Yeah, and no, that's an amazing North Star, by the way. Yeah.
Okay, so it is a North Star. Thank you very much. Awesome. So, like I said, I want to first and foremost say thank you so much to Seth for coming on today. So we did a mini version of this, a couple months ago for the Juneteenth holiday in the community. I guess I shouldn't say mini because it was just like so many layers to it. Seth just had a layer in the cake, and getting this like deeper dive into it. And also, I think the demographic is different of where we were talking to younger kids, whereas now, like we're talking to collegiate students. It's giving right now, I can give you this advice based off of my experience, and you can actually do this right now. Like when depending on the age demographic that we teach to, a lot of times it's like, I'm giving you this information because now you can aspire and you're exposed to this type of stuff so that now you know the steps to get to that point. But a lot of these students are already in the fields or they are already in their majors. So right now, the tips that you're giving them are things that they're probably going to implement tomorrow. I bet you I'm going to get some things. We have a game designer on our team, Daria, and she's probably going to be like, Justice, I just did 4 new pins because Seth said that I needed to spend 2 weeks on creating this specific player dynamic. And it's things like that of giving that real world experience for them now to be able to utilize immediately. So thank you so much, Seth. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being so impactful to all of our communities. Good little pun there. And really big thank you to our Riot team. Once again, thank you, Victoria, and always Sam, for coming on and just making sure that this is some like in a certain way, we are doing player dynamics within these Connect series, so I really appreciate all of the Riot team. I don't know if you all had anything that you wanted to say as last words, but I'll give you the floor.
Stay connected with us on LinkedIn after this session, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Great. Thank you all so much for joining. once again, like I always say, happy Friday, Junior. It's not Friday yet, so, rest up. And then tomorrow, I'm guessing class or whatever else you have going on. But thank you again to our Riot team. Thank you for my community team that is on here. Super big shout out to you all. You all are my player dynamics team in this. Look, I'm telling you, I'm going to start using these phrases. So I appreciate everyone for being a part of this. And thank you so much to everybody that joined on today. And I hope that you got a good nugget or two to dip into your sweet and sour sauce for you to be able to go ahead and move on to the next phase of your career. Thank you all so much. And we hope to see you next week, where next week will be our last and final Connect session. We will be hearing from, when I say like the layers of the cake, this was the layers of the cake for an in-person event that we did a few months ago. And so now we've had JD, we've had Seth, and next week we'll have Alvin. And our very first, we had Sam, where it's just like, this was my cake just a few months ago. So I'm so glad that we're able to expose our community, like nationwide, worldwide, to things that we do. We had that event in LA, and now everybody can get a little piece of that pie. So thank you all so much, and thank you to Riot, and hopefully we'll see everybody next week for our last and final Connect series. Thank you, everyone. Happy Friday, Junior. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.